It's Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs. Let's start the show with Lewis Tennant. Here we go. Guests and interviews that you're looking for with creators, innovators, and so much more. For all episodes and further info, verbalhighs.com is the place to go.
Welcome to Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs, a podcast from Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland, New Zealand. My name is Lewis. I'm the host of the show, and this is episode number 113. The other 112 of the episodes, 1 through to 112, are available at verbalhighs.com. And in a few weeks, the show would have been going 5 years, which is I'm both proud of, but also quite terrified of in terms of life tumbling to an end once you get past 40 and you've been doing something 5 years. Remember when you were 19, you did something for 1 year and that felt like the equivalent of about 10 now. We're all going to die. So that's it's a cheery beginning. So yeah, if you're new here, kia ora, and yeah, definitely go back. The episodes are staying up as long as I keep flicking Squarespace some clams every year. Actually, the clams are due in November. This is a passion project. I don't think I've asked this for about a year or longer. I just really enjoy it as a kind gesture from listeners, and there's been a few of them. There is a donate button if you feel like helping me out with the next year. If not, my donation. Can I ask you if you listen to this and like it, I just share it either with one person or with many people on your social media. If you with your influencer tentacles, put them out there. It'd be lovely. This guest I have thought about having on since the beginning, but I had really no direct connection. We know mutuals because Mike Keat has resided in New Zealand, has come back to perform a number of times in New Zealand. I discovered him at Spore Festival, and so thanks to Mike Takis, who hooked this up. He's based in Wellington. Some of you know who he is, but they have a connection through life in Palmerston North, which we chat about. Love you, Palmerston North. So I went into the Zoom room because I'm keeping doing these Zoom chats because we're in lockdown here, and I've done this twice now with a global guest. So I've got the time zone wrong. So I sent Mike a message saying, "Okay, I think you might have forgotten, and hey, look, we'll leave it till tomorrow because I don't want you to rush." And I got one back saying, "Hey, look, mate, well, that sounds aggressive." And say, "Mate, oh, come on, of course I remembered. You're just an hour out must be because of daylight savings." We got there in the end. So what we talked about, well, he's got an alter ego named Miguel Madavani, frontman for the Cuban brothers. I'm not going to try and describe what the Cuban brothers are right now if you are not already familiar with the said brothers from Cuba. What you could do is you could pause this for a sec and go type in Cuban brothers live into YouTube. It's one of those things where it really is a live experience, and I kind of get why there's not a lot of footage of the live shows up online, because it's like it's a carbon copy, a poor carbon copy of actually being there. But at the same time, you will be super entertained. I think there's a good clip which I've done a wee edit of. I'll play in a sec of them in Hyde Park in London. It's taken him around the world. He's kind of a global citizen anyway. He went to a whole bunch of schools over the years, living between Scotland and New Zealand. We talked to Lockdown UK versus Lockdown New Zealand. His character he created for their lockdown, they've just come on out. He's been doing shows again called Zen Bustin', who is a parody of a health and fitness TV guy in the UK called Joe Wick. Lots to YouTube here or Google if you're that way inclined. We talked about kind of general motivation in lockdown, fitness for him coming out and doing these kind of mad, really high octane festival shows with a bunch of breakdancing and singing and rapping throughout them. We talked being a Ute, coming from the UK and from rave culture and having earrings and a ponytail and ending up at Otago Boys on an arguably or admittedly dubious golf scholarship. That was a good story. Mundem not played a lot of golf, it turns out. Formative years, yes, back and forth from Scotland. And, of course, we had to talk about Miguel, and I needed to find out a lot about the man and the style icon. We talked knee-high socks and walk shorts. We talked the influence of George McRae on Miguel's style. We talked about Taylor Kiley. We talked about getting props from Chuck D, him, not me, and clandestine drinking sessions with Flavor Flav on a dry tour. Touring with a 15-piece band as the Cuban Brothers, supporting an 18-piece band. Fronted by James Brown. I was saying, come on, I hope he does the voice. But you can't say do the voice. You can't say do the voice. I hope he does the voice. He does the voice. A few times. And some other good voices. So there's a whole bunch we didn't talk about. This could easily be a second episode jobby with Mike. He's got a whole lot of film and TV acting under his belt. He's does voiceover work. He's got the Cuban Brothers have got recorded music and sessions, which I'll get to in a second. All the artistic and cultural luminaries he's come across touring this show over 20 plus years. Private shows for Elton John, Damien Hirst. Very charismatic, insightful, quick-witted and talented fella. Thank you, Mike. Cuban Brothers, there's a great video. Another thing we didn't talk about, I'm guessing we have a mutual love of Muppets and puppets in general, because go check out the I Hate video by the Cuban Brothers. It's Muppet action. Probably not licensed Muppets, but Muppet adjacent, very Muppet similar. Go to Discogs, Cuban Brothers, for more direct connection. Cuban Brothers at Bandcamp. There's some really, I thought, very reasonably priced collectible vinyl. I love vinyl and short runs from acts that I really love. Instagram, the Cuban Brothers, and then the stuff Mike was doing that he mentions with the characters over lockdown on Insta is Mike Keats Says Friends. Man, that's a tough one to just read. MikeKeatsYesFriends. Mike Keats Says Friends. To my details, please like and rate the show, subscribe and share. Verbal Highs on Twitter, Verbal Highs Podcast on Facebook, Verbal Highs on Apple and Google Podcasts. You can stream via Spotify or iHeart, and then, of course, there's the website I mentioned, verbalhighs.com.
Verbal High straight down from up above.
Don't be afraid to touch each other. We're all friends here today. We're going to take it down. We're going to try our best with you today. Our cherry is here, ladies and gentlemen. Make them feel welcome. Kenny the Bastard is here, ladies and gentlemen. When I say Kenny, you say the bastard. Kenny. Kenny. When I say Kenny, you say the bastard. Kenny. Kenny. When I say Kenny, you say the bastard. Kenny. Kenny. Thank you so much. Somebody in this, let's do one for London, huh? London has never been so great over this weekend. Do that lovers thing. Do that lovers holiday thing. What a beautiful weekend, ladies and gentlemen. We need to celebrate this year. People saying to me, oh, Miguel, no, I don't like it, mate. I hate it. It's too hot, mate. It's too hot. Nah, Miguel, nah, take it back to Havana, mate. I fucking hate it. It's rubbish. Too hot, too hot. Stop your whining, Prince. This is amazing. Celebrate the heat and the joy. This is a song about London. I'd like to put it out to you if you're from London or from North. Gracia Hyde Park. We're going to do it today, Gracia. Pump it up. Yes. Come on. Oh my God, I'm too hot, mate. I'm too hot. I got on the tube, mate. I'm sweating my tits off, man. I can't believe it. Come on. All right now. All right now. Well, the sun shone out in the sky that very night in London City. Shorty, I must have lost my number, fell into a deep slumber. You play me lonely, you make a player wonder. I play Motorola tag, you read me here, my convertible jacket, then I gotta take a leap. Slide aside, you busting the bathroom with sex in your eye. Pat you down, no trunk, kiss the cat. Legs is upside down, twist the bed.
This is Dr. Janet's Verbal Highs.
I am in the Zoom room alone. It's always a slightly anxiety-filled affair, I find, reminiscent of sitting, maybe standing, existing, waiting for a date to turn up, a first date in one's teenage years. I don't think Mike and I are going to the movies tonight. But it's a time difference, isn't it? Goodness. Well, look, here's a solid, I mean, this is up to 50 seconds. This is nearly a solid minute of I think, very entertaining, well recorded, I'd say A- grade podcast material.
Verbal high straight down from up above.
Hello. Hey, how are you?
I'm good, brother. How are you? I'll just see if I can turn this off. Maybe I can see you. How does it work? Yes, sir.
You should be able to see me. I can't see you if you can turn your camera on. Fuck, this is just like every conversation of the last 2 years.
Isn't it, bro? Hold on, I'll start a video. This should be cool in the gang now.
Hey.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm good, brother. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great. This is weird because it's like, I was thinking, like, I'm so used to Miguel that I feel like this is maybe going behind the scenes. I don't, it might burst the illusion for me in some way.
Well, the illusion has been properly fucking burst over the past 18 months. So it's one of them ones, Lewis. It's like, but I'll say cheer to you, and I'm supposed to be off the drink as of today. I'm taking a little resty rest, but
that is, that's a generous double. And it's 9 a.m. here, otherwise I'd join you. What's the last 18 months? Lockdown.
Yeah, the lockdowns and that were fairly, nonsense, and so cats like us, any artists, anyone who's a performer, we had nothing really. So there was nothing to. So yeah, it's fairly brutal.
But New Zealand, we're all kind of like smugly looking at what was going on everywhere else, and now we're in it, right? I mean,
it's mental, isn't it?
You should see what's under my hat. It's like 12 weeks of 6. But you have got back out, right? Because you're based in the UK, right? You live in the UK, but you have got back out and done shows recently, right?
Yeah. I had 25 shows in a space of 6 weeks. So between the end of June, or the end of June and the end of September, I did about 25 shows, like mostly festivals and a couple of private shits. And then I went, I went to open up Soho House in Rome. And then did and then I had a show in Paris. So we've been lucky. It's been lucky. I say it's been good to have some balance, you know. So it was hardcore doing about 4 or 5 shows a week, but I was happy to do it and get the shekels because ostensibly, the government and the powers that be had fucking neutered cats like me. And I just like fucking, like what the fuck.
And I get it. The money's, what makes our modern world go round. But it probably goes without saying that it's good for your mental health to get back out, right? And for what was the vibe like at festivals?
Amazing. Yeah. It was 100% that, Lewis. For me especially, it's like I'm a social dude, less so as I've got 3 kids, I've got a family and stuff, so less so as I've got more mature in the sense of I tour for a living, I perform for a living, so I get to scratch any of that type of itch, and so but then not to have any outlet at all, it was fucked up, and I didn't cope very well, to be honest. I did initially. I started doing, I put stuff on Instagram, so I've got quite a decently Insta following. So I did this character, it's got went viral and stuff like that. It's a piss take on a guy who does, Joe Wicks, who does the old, he's the nation's PE teacher. He's a young guy, and he does that lane in 15. He's from Essex. He's got this kind of accent, and he's just got everyone doing, all the mums and dads, and all the kids like training in the front room, the living room, when all the lockdown was happening and stuff like that. So I did a parody on him. Yeah, as one of many things I did, but that helped because it hit home and got. I got some work from that actually, as in some. So
that's not Barry Peters. That's another character. That's a lockdown.
That's something else. Yeah. Right. It was me doing a parody based on that guy. It was a little bit zeitgeisty because he was in everyone's homes every morning at sort of 9 o'clock. And so I jumped on that. And it was nothing. I did a very sort of subversive version of him, which is a bit wrong. But, a bit wrong, but like not wrong enough that it was too wrong for the kids. So although there's a bit of sexual innuendo, a bit of wrongness, but no bad language, nothing too out there. But the kids loved it more than anything. So, and everyone I'm getting sent videos of kids doing me rather than doing him.
Great.
So,
I think they call that meta, right? Yeah. Someone doing the thing. And but then, there like two things there. I recognise that because last lockdown, the first one went into New Zealand, I realised that I was set up in here to actually do complete radio shows. So for me, it was just checking in once a day to actually do something, to like perform or have something where you connect with outside your bubble.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you were the same. It was kind of like, because the other thing they say with lockdown is like, you go, oh great, I'm going to be home, so I'm going to finish writing that album, or I'm going to finish writing that book, and then you're watching 3 hours of the worst breakfast TV you've ever seen in your life that you'd normally like never go near, right? So there's kind of a inbuilt fatigue to it where you want to do all these things but they don't get done. Did you feel a bit of that?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a bit, I mean, there's like a lot of things. Like I've got a studio stroke dressing up room stroke, and so it needs clearing up, right? And it's like
which is the same as it was.
You imagine a whole year, like there's a whole year, and I just didn't do it. And it was like that thing. But I'm a massive procrastinator anyway. Yeah. So I get my buzz, and my thing is from being, not particularly well prepared, and from going into a situation and fighting my way out, as an entertainer, getting laughs, and that's and so it's not something I'm proud of, but that's kind of my MO. Like I never like to over prepare. I'm never going to make a cunt of it because I haven't prepared at all. Yeah. But with gigs and with shows, that was always the vibe for me. That like I wanted to go there and improvise as much as possible and try and pull shit from people and use that rather than be how a lot of cats, a lot of comics and stuff I see and stuff like that, they're working a formula.
No, that's right, yeah. But then it's different strokes for different folks. Like some people are like, it's funny you say that because I guess I'm a performer but in a different kind of realm to you. Like, so, for example, say the intro to this podcast or when I used to do radio interviews back in the day, some people are better with their producer handing them 10 verbatim questions to read. I was always like a bullet point and riff kind of guy because I think for me the magic and the way my brain works comes from that, so I get that. Yeah. Last thing on lockdown, because I guess that there's 25 million podcast episodes probably available at the moment where people talk about lockdown. Your show's quite physical. Like I just put my pants on this morning and I'm like, I don't have scales, but I know my weight at the moment is bigger than when I went into lockdown. I'm not asking you about your weight, mate. I'm asking about because your show is aerobic. You break dance. There's a hell of a movement. Like, did you have to get a bit match fit in the first shows, or were you okay?
Yeah, no, we did. I mean, there's a certain, I've been a b-boy since, so look, I'm over 35 years. Like I'm first generation UK stroke Kiwi b-boy because when I came back from New Zealand, I was there from New Zealand when I was 3 until I was 6, and I came back, and my old man's a publican, so like there's a certain amount of I've been dancing for many years, and so with that you got the injuries and all that, so there's a certain amount of that, and so for dancing that amount of time, but I did train to get back into it because and now that's the main reason that I'm going off the drink and all that kind of stuff, because this is actually, we're through the other side, but there's still a bit of nonsense. Yeah. But yeah, I put a lot of this away, and whatever really. I did a bit of self-medicating, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, man. But there's a certain amount of. I'm a surfer, so if I get a lot of time, we're lucky enough to be out in Portugal, or I'm across in Bali twice a year. Yeah. So I'm getting a good chance to do that, and so I've been without sounding like a wanker, I've been an athlete for close to a couple of.
It's a great word, because on top of everything else, your show it's an athletic show. It fully is. So let's go. Mention your old man. You mentioned the early days of b-boying. Let's kind of go back there a bit. So first thing is, though, I obviously do a bit of research going into these, and I saw you on Ramesh's Hip Hop Saved My Life podcast. Do you remember doing that?
Yeah.
And he tried to describe what you guys are, and then you cut me some slack with how I was going to describe it, because you said, yeah, we actually are quite hard to describe. So I'd say Cuban Brothers is kind of like, it's a mashup of like a working club kind of comedian who happens to be Cuban, obvious hip hop culture, and a kind of Latin Cuban flavour, but also like a real knowledge of kind of music and the lineage and all of that. Does that sound am I kind of fair there with my...
Yeah, it's fair. I think that's fair, Lewis. Yeah, man, that's totally... I think that's fair. Look, it's on paper. Of course it doesn't make any sense. And, if someone was to try and describe that, what you just said to me just now, oh, brother.
You were laughing again.
I'll just grab 5 tickets, bro. Let's get going, eh?
Is my accent really that strong? Now I feel like it's getting stronger.
No, not at all, bro. No, not at all. Not at all. No, I'm just saying, I do a character, a few different characters. I do a character called Nigel Fanger. Nigel Fanger's a bloody nature evangelist and stuff like that. Anyway, but he's out there. No, man, it's I think that's quite fair, Lewis. It's an unusual. It was a way for me when I started doing it. I've been in bands. I've been in the hip hop. I've been an MC since forever. For a long time. And it was a way for me to sort of put my spurious talents, how are you going to, how am I going to get away as a sort of, at the time, as a 20-year-old MC back in Europe, trying to flex like that. Like,
I get it. It's like people that just do nothing. It's like it's another rapper. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
And so I had, I did characters that I always had, and I was lucky enough when I came back to New Zealand. I was 15, and which is very formative years. You sort of you got that start of what your identity is.
Totally, yeah.
And so when I came back, we went to live in Dunedin. And I went to like an all boys school there, like Otago Boys. I only lasted about 5 months, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I'll go into why that was, but my identity then was like fairly stripped, quick, fast, in a hurry, because here I was, this guy who was into music. Obviously, whatever you want to call it, rave culture, house music has kind of exploded. We're talking about 1990 here.
Yeah, you're right. New Zealand Dunedin was a few years off any of that then.
No, and then I'm going to school, and it's all homespun woolen jerseys and rugby shirts out there, and shaggy, and slides. Bloody slides and grey trackies, and they're like this. Oh, what about this? What about this guy? Can I swear on this?
Yeah, I think you already have a number of times.
Oh, wonderful. Sure. They're like, what about this guy? Fuck, is he a puffer?
Yeah.
Oh, man, look, I've got earrings. I've got a ponytail.
Yeah.
And, I was a DJ then. I started DJing at 14 and a half, whatever. I had records and stuff with me. But, yeah, it was like that. I had no... no one was particularly interested at all. They're like that. All the rugby boys are like, ugh, he's a bit off, isn't it, bro? He's a bit fucking, little bit of fit.
Ponytail, bro.
And then it was, and so it's quite, my whole identity meant nothing in New Zealand, even to the point where the teachers had me in, oh, Mr. Keat, I don't think you realise here at Otago Boys, you can't have your hair any longer than the lobes of your ears, and we certainly don't allow earrings. So if you want to sort that out, and we'll get you in tomorrow. And remember, we're going to be doing a sock check at assembly, so you must have the school socks on as well there, as a young man. So I was like, Wow. So yeah, man, quite an extraordinary culture shock, but at the same time, wonderful, because, I'm in New Zealand, where I'm from, from being living in the city in the UK and stuff. It was everything was new, and maybe not quite as hype, but certainly culturally, and it gave me quite a lot of.
But there's always a few like kind of weirdos and artists and curious people in all groups. So you must have found a couple of guys that you kind of turned on to things and.
No, for sure, it wasn't. It wasn't all bad. No, not at all. It wasn't all bad, but it was like
just that kind of draconian, conservative New Zealand. And
these schools, you're looking at basically what is known as, I think, is Kiwi aristocracy, because
true. Is it a private school?
It's 5 generations who have been farming the land, and we're talking about the big sheep stations. Like. Whatever it is, like 40,000 square miles. These cats, it's been in the family for time.
Yeah.
I remember like one time going down to Wanaka. Then was going to Wanaka. Oh, bro, you're going to come down to Wanaka, but we all go down for New Year. And one of the boys, I was just turning 16. He got given a Land Rover for his 16th birthday. Look, I couldn't even borrow $40 to go from Dunedin to Wanaka. I was like, what about these cats?
So how did you end up, we don't get too in the weeds on this, but how did you end up, of all the schools in Dunedin, going to the private kind of boys' school? Was it a location thing? It was close or something, or?
It was close. My dad, we managed a place called the Pacific Park Hotel.
Yeah.
Then I met my old man, because my old man's a publican, and he's But what it was is we told a little bit of a pokey pie, bro. Tell a little story. My folks thought it was a good idea. My dad, particularly, thought it was a good idea for me to say that I was a shit-hot golfer. Right. So I got into Otago Boys on a golf scholarship.
Had you swung a club?
Yeah, just. So, but like literally up the park with a 9-iron, and just chipping, So I could play, but there's no way that I'm going on a scholarship. But bro, I got snapped out.
You went on a golf scholarship and you couldn't play golf.
Yeah, man. So I could play, but certainly not like these young cats. Check this out. On a rainy Wednesday, we all got in the van and went down to Invercargill, an even rainier place than Dunedin, even shitter. We went down there for this golf tournament, and I'm there with all the, there's a few shit-out golfers and that, and, they're going to see, Scotty, bro, Mikey's he's playing, we'll see what he's all about. So on the first tee, it's pissing down, right? And I just, I haven't got the proper garms on. I've got a swan dry on that I borrowed off one of the things, right? Stepping to the tee, there's no FootJoy jacket or anything. It's a full swan dry, and just the slice, just like that. And I proceeded to play the next 9 holes like an absolute dickhead. And I was, basically snapped.
So they knew the jig was up, but I'd imagine you're a likable fella, so they kind of like let it slide, right? Is that the general gist of it?
Generally. I mean, it wasn't made a big deal of. To me, I think it was, and probably to them, to the teachers and stuff, it was quite amusing, because if you're going to demoralise yourself, that's one way of fucking doing it.
Well, look, I'm such a what do you call it? What would that be if they're pure breeds at that school? I'm such a mutt that I'm 44 years old and I only just learnt you can get a golf scholarship to a school in New Zealand. So it's definitely not my world.
Look, it's a case of you're chancing your arm, and that's what we did, and literally, and man, it was. But what a blessing! I was only there for 6 months, and then I got a chance to move up the road, move up to the North Island, and so. Yeah,
so two things quickly there, because we'll move on and talk about the career that unfolded. But your dad was a publican in the UK. I've heard you talk about that's where you started seeing a lot of basically kind of song and dance acts. Firstly, what made them make the move to here? And secondly, how did you end up at Palmerston North? Because that's how I know that you and I know a few people similarly. Yeah.
Yeah.
John Cleese had said great things about Palmerston North. Remember that?
Something like that. They say it was the arsehole of the earth.
Something like that. Yeah. I was kind of like, I'm not going to say anything, but You know.
Yeah, no, it's my dad's from Martin.
Oh, so he's a Kiwi. So right, yeah.
The old man's from Martin, and so yeah, that's a connection with the Manawatu. He's from Martin, and so what was the question again?
Sorry, I asked you two. The first one's basically like, how did he? Well, now I know that he was born in New Zealand. Going by your accent, how did he end up in Scotland? Presumably, running pubs.
Well, he was I'm illegitimate, right? So I'm a bona fide bastard. So he met my mum when I was about just turned 3.
Yeah,
and then here's this little kid. This little blonde-haired, angelic, maybe, or slightly. People used to say to my granny and stuff, "Oh, what's her name? Isn't she gorgeous?" Until I was 4, people thought I was a girl, which is fair enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, and so they met, and then so that was it. Like my mum and dad met. My mum's a hairdresser. My old boy's travelling, and he sort of fell in love with my mum, and they took us on. And he's quite a big, fantastic camp geezer, Dave the Rive. So he's quite famous in the Manawatu. So anyway, but that was the thing, and then we went. He wanted to take us back to New Zealand, and we were like that. Let's do this, and so that was how we came back to initially, and man, and so that's how we started. Started a life in New Zealand, and then I think my mum probably got too sort of homesick. And we ended up going back, and then I think she'd been back literally a week, and she's saying, "What the fuck have I done?" You know what I mean?
So you only lived over here for a few years, like 14 to 18 or something like that.
Yes, yeah. But the first time, 3 till I was 6.
Oh yeah.
And then back to the UK, and then back.
You
out.
are a truly global citizen. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And I thought it was quite a bold move. And again, I'm just reading snippets online, so we'll just find out what's accurate as we go. But my understanding is you just packed on up from here and went off on your own to go DJ in Spain. Is that right? Was that the first move? Yeah. Yeah,
it was. Yeah. I left New Zealand at 18, and I had a chance because I thought, I was having a great time. We were putting on events in Palmerston North, and then I was coming down to the Deep Tongue parties, which will be just before. If you're 44, you probably would have just missed them.
How old are you?
And I'm 47. So
right. You must just you've guessed I'm from Wellington. I guess that's because Mike hooked this convo up. Yeah.
Yeah.
You said down. Right. So you must know Matt Ford if you were putting on parties in Palmerston North.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah,
it's such a small world. Yeah.
Oh, well, Matt Ford. I mean, that's my crew.
Yeah.
So these are my best mates. Me, Yokanor, DJ Trent Takarangi.
Yeah. I know Trent from years ago.
Bryce Love, Matt Ford.
Yeah.
Paulie, who's Paura. Paulie and.
Great.
Yeah, so me, Jochen, and Bryce and Damien McGregor. Yeah. Right. So I was coming down and we were doing Naked Angel as well on Allenby Steps. So I was coming to the Naked Angel, and which was just amazing. And that was obviously Beatnik and what's his name, Clinton Smiley. Yeah, he's still with us, right, Clinton?
Yeah, he is. I actually we did a big '90s club reunion thing, and I've lived in Auckland for years. I put the lineup together. So it was kind of from like before my time, like we just talked about, to 99. So it's quite nice quietly walking around the 2-room venue knowing that I was kind of the mad conductor of all of it. But anyway, point being, to speak to your question, is there's been a family trust for Jason for quite a few years now. So every dollar of those ticket sales went to his the mother of his kids and his kids to go to college. But as you know, without going too far into it on the podcast, like he's, ever since he had that turn, it's kind of been all over in a way, So he is still here, but he's kind of not still here.
For real.
Yeah,
it's a shame.
Yeah.
But big ups, and I was ensconced in that sort of Wellington club and culture even at that age, and I was DJing myself, and we put on parties in Palmy, at Jochen's place, and with Matt, and with it. Yeah, they were really a great time actually to be alive. And New Zealand was, and certainly Wellington the whole of it, man. I mean, my favourite DJ was Manuel Bundy, you know, and so that was I looked up to him. He was like still, and he still is an amazing. You know,
yeah, no, you're right. And the people regular listeners to the show will be either laughing or no, whatever. But I often joke that there's a lot of 90s nostalgia, Wellington nostalgia on this show. But at the same time, I think that was because I've been writing something, a history article for Audio Culture. But it struck me that the 90s in general, like globally, was just quite a mad time for music and youth culture and all of that, right? It's not uncommon. That kind of, there was a really kind of fertile period there, I reckon. Yeah, absolutely, and certainly, you know, look, I was able to. I came back to the UK, and I was so disillusioned. I went to live in Palma in Mallorca, but you know, in New Zealand, that was what I knew. I was coming up at that formative time in my life, and it was brilliant. And Wellington. I was up in Auckland. We were up in the box in Auckland and stuff, but Wellington was amazing. A really great vibe there. I know maybe people, as you say, I know you've got a lot of cats who probably heard you talk about similar things, but it was a special time, man. It was, you know, it was. No, I openly encourage this because it means that it's not the host banging on about some sad nostalgia that, you know, it's like, 20 years ago. No, it was good. It was good. It was good. You know, it was great. It's great.
No, yeah, wicked. It's a vibe. It's a vibe, and that was it, man. Yeah. So I wanted to be a DJ and to be more, you know, onto it with you know, making moves and stuff like that. And so I decided to come back to the UK.
So were you always like, because you sort of explained the reasoning for the Cuban Brothers forming. Well, there's probably a few reasons, but one of them was like you say, like how do you make it as another this? Sort of gets crafted into that. But before that became a sort of a show or a thing that we recognise now, would you be the guy that did kind of characters, you know, just day-to-day life with your mates? Like, was there always, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's where it come from. You know, I was always a bit, you know, I don't know what we want to call it, a show-off to a certain extent.
You're an entertainer. Come on, don't say show-off.
Yeah. But I mean, but like I was always going to do, you know, I was always going to take the piss, and so I was doing impressions of people, but not always, you know, in a sort of a fashion which was sort of unkind. But I was always doing that kind of stuff, and so yeah, for me to do characters, I'd always done characters, and I'd always done, you know, forever. And I guess in some ways it come from the fact that, you know, I went to 12 different schools, so you're going to have to have something there. Which is, you know, because you're constantly, not so much reinventing, but you're constantly going like, oh yeah, you know, I've got a new friendship group, or you're trying to do some kind of fitting in, and so either you're handy with them, or you're going to have a laugh.
He held up his fists, folks. This is we don't do video. Just pointing out. He held up his hams.
He held up his knuckles. Yeah. And they were. His hands are
with some serious artillery on the knuckles, ring wise, folks. I'm sure he could have gone both ways, having seen those. So you get to Spain, live there for a while, and does the Cuban Brothers kind of just slowly morph into a thing, or do you kind of like sit down one day and kind of put a few bullet points together?
Yeah, I guess it was no, I didn't particularly put bullet points together, but it did. I used to DJ and I used to play percussion as well. Yeah. So I'd set up bonga and bongos, and I used to DJ and I used to play this. And so it came about as a character that was, you know, a guy it was based loosely on a couple of people. So it was this character I started doing, Miguelito. It was based on a guy who was a hotel. I used to live in a hotel. Yeah, and so when I was going to DJ, he would be there entertaining people and that kind of stuff.
Oh, was he like the publican turned I'm the entertainer at night kind of thing?
Kind of. He was just a very substandard.
I love it.
A very substandard MC, you know, like just like, you know, and his whole. But
that's a great rave MC name. Why has no one ever taken that? It would look good on a poster. Substandard MC. And then just like twice the speed of Skibbity, but
yeah.
Anyway,
so
it's loosely based on him and then one other person as well.
Yeah, because he was a very warm guy, this dude.
Yeah.
Like, so I loved watching him, and he was, you couldn't dislike the guy, but he was just very, he just wasn't a particularly good entertainer.
Yeah.
It was based on that and the idea, of course, of a Latin entertainer who's sort of past his peak, somebody who'd been popular and had a TV show, and for whatever reason, he sort of he wasn't really performing at that level anymore.
Oh, and then like for me, where I realised now I'd never really thought about it, where I'd pick up that kind of culture from, my knowledge isn't great, but I just picture all those records that sit in thrift shops that no one ever buys of those sort of guys. Is that the sort of vibe where...
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, and that's the thing, it was, endless inspiration. Endless, we're coming from those sleeves, I was doing, the worst album sleeves of all time long before it was a GIF or long before it was a thing, it's not a GIF, sorry, long before it was something that people were putting on Instagram.
Long before it was the internet, basically. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I was collecting those shits, because I was a digger and I wanted to find it, so I bought all those. And then if I loved the sleeve, or I loved the ridiculously of the sleeve, I would have sort of the dudes on the front with the involuntary eye twitch and just a full comb over. I'm like, I'll have two. Have you got any more?
You just realised what I can do with my hair at the moment in lockdown. Maybe I'll just start. I've got to start like posing record covers or doing something like that. So the other thing with Miguel, now we're talking about, I love it, man. Like that idea of just kind of, how do you put it? Just picking from different things culturally that either you amuse you or you think are cool, or His bottom half, I'm talking when I'm standing in a crowd, has always reminded me of a certain era of New Zealand man that's kind of dying away, who might have like been a regular drinker at the bowling club. Do the knee-high socks and suit pants shorts kind of evoke that, or is that from somewhere else?
No, I mean...
Because that doesn't really scream Cuban entertainer, right? Yeah.
It doesn't. I mean, that's the thing. What it was,
there were hundreds of those guys around when I was a kid, man. Sorry, I'm answering your question. Yeah, go on.
No, but it's true, because that thing was, it's the postie, it's the Kiwi postie. But in the 70s and 80s, you'll know this, and I'm pretty sure your listeners will, that if any cats who were civil servants in the summer, that was the look, right?
Geography teachers and school photos, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Come on, everyone, just be quiet, please. Can anyone tell me what continent is Botswana in? Botswana. Come on, who's for, and bloody, yes, sir. but no, that look, no, to be honest, that look particularly, the sock and sort of Bermuda, or the ringers, as you might, bloody ringers might, the full ringers.
Yeah.
That actually came from an artist, what's his name? Will come to me just now. He did a song, "Do the Funky Penguin." His daughter, "Do the Funky Penguin, do the Funky Penguin." George McCrae, right? Check it out. So I got this thing back in the day, like again, long before the internet. George McCrae, a video of him, and he's wearing a cape, right, a pink cape, and he's got on knee-high white socks. White boots, like with the Cuban heel, which are the heels like that. So, for all your listeners out there, I'm doing good.
Thank you. I forgot. Yeah.
That's my willy.
If you think that's 6 inches, we need to have a talk. But anyway, keep going.
So that's the vibe, and so basically that look came from George McCrae, and it's early 70s. Yeah. It's the pop locking which came out. California and stuff like that. So George McCrae in this video, he was actually, a lot of his looks gave Miguel his look, I was, sometimes I'm rocking capes. I was always rocking a double-breasted with brocade around the thing. And so it was basically, as I say, it was that guy who, he was, he saw himself as being forward-thinking fashion, but it was forward-thinking fashion from the early 70s.
Yeah, and just as an aside, I know his name. I'm sure there's a tune of his that I know better than the one you mentioned. But anyway, yeah, you've just described it. It's a weird combo of like New Zealand geography teacher meets kind of Rick James somewhere in the middle, which is what you've just described, right? Yeah,
for real.
By the way, second guest I've told this just because it's weirdly come up. I just stumbled across a new doco about him that's really good, man. You saw it? You've seen it? I
haven't seen it yet.
No, it's good.
But I just saw it advertised and I can't wait to get in.
No, it's one of those docos that, like, you know, a good doco is when it could be about anything and you go, hey, watch this doco. So not only is it interesting as someone into that music, but it's a great doco. I was quite blown away because I didn't really know a lot about it. Wasn't expecting. So Miguel Mantovani, what I'm kind of curious about, because when you're on stage, you're so locked into that character. Like, how method does it go? Like, does he have a backstory in your head?
Of course.
Yeah.
No, there's a full backstory. The whole carry on was, and they always did have. And the whole deal was I had a show called, Good Morning Havana, and I redid that at the Edinburgh Festival. Yeah. So I did I did an ISDN link up. Before Zooms, obviously. Yeah. Just 20 years ago, I had a link up where I played my own wife, Maria, and I linked up. So obviously we pre-recorded that and all that kind of thing. So the whole thing is he had a daytime TV show, and he'd been one of the favourite entertainers of the cartels, right? So he was that guy. He come out of the late 70s, and he was popular because he, in the Latin nations, in the Caribbean as well, he was a guy that, he was a bit of a player. And then the whole idea was that he got involved with the pornography industry, and he was. Oh,
I knew that, but I've heard him talk about that. Yeah, because he's got back problems from the amount of films he did, right? Yeah,
and he sort of fucked up because he made a film with the Minister of Agriculture's daughter, unbeknownst to him. He made a film with her. She was a starlet, and that was the reason that he faced exile, prisoner exile, and he chose exile, and so that's what brought Miguel to the UK. Now, thinking about it now, it's a little bit clumsy and a little bit, but
I love that you thought about it that much. Why is it a little bit clumsy? What's wrong with all of that?
I guess just talking about it now, you're sort of like. There's no part of that didn't make sense to me in terms of logistics. It works out. I think the one thread missing, but it might be unsaid, is that I now realise he's probably spent quite a few years adjusting electrically from quite a long-term blow habit. If he was the cartel's favourite entertainer, right? Yeah, for sure.
So that's a whole that's a whole ride in itself.
That's the whole thing. But I mean, when I started in the sort of more the late 90s, I started in '98 with this properly as a show.
Yeah.
There was quite a lot of nose whiskey flying around anyway, and so that kind of banter where I would just talk about it quite openly, and sometimes. And this is where it is a little bit like I would not do this now and have fun, but I'd have a little bit of flour and that here and there. I would disappear and come back on stage, and it's like,
it's good. Stanislavski would be proud, man. That's method acting.
It didn't look particularly like my tie wasn't straight. If you get what I mean. And sometimes it was real gear, and sometimes it was flour. Yeah. Who knows? That's right. Yeah. No, of course, I would never do. I'd never do the show.
No, but you're right. So, but you say, you said before, it's interesting, something to do with performing for a wide audience, or whatever you'd give it if it had a video cassette cover rating. But the way you deliver that character is it's kind of like what I like about shows like The Muppets or whatever. Like, the subversiveness can be where the kids are, right? The way you do it. I see that as really intentional as well.
Totally. That's the thing. I didn't think about it too much, Lewis, and I haven't particularly, but the way people, people want to tell me about it, or the experiences, if we, from fans and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And from people who are, there's a lot of people who have grown up with us effectively, because I've been doing these festivals like Camp Bestival, Glastonbury ostensibly. I've done 20 of them.
Even Splore, if you were a pretty young person now, they might have seen you first when they were a kid, and now they go as a young adult. We did 3 Splores, and one of the best, certainly one of the best sites. I'd been living in Aussie for years, and the first year or two back wasn't the best era of my life, let's just put it that way. But I went with a mate to explore, and that first time I came over the hill and actually saw that setup, it was like, having been to a lot of shows, I was like, wow, that is the first time you see that stage on the beach and whatever. And I always think, like, because obviously you've got New Zealand baked into you, but like, say one example, like those American MCs they get over, like, imagine seeing that for the first time as where you're performing. You know?
Man, totally. I mean, the first one we did was with Talib Kweli.
Yeah.
We travelled across with Talib and Jean Grey.
Yeah.
And he literally was like, oh my
fucking God, yeah. I don't know if you listen to a lot of podcasts, but his podcast is really good. He's got a show where he does this, like, long form talks to comedians and rappers. I've watched some of them, but I follow on Insta, so I get the shortened versions. But he's great. He is great. He's insufferable on Twitter sometimes, but I'm not much of a.
I can't go there. I can't go there. I'm like that. Like, dude, I don't do Twitter anymore. But yeah, he's a little bit. He's a deeply intelligent, erudite guy.
Well, both his parents are like, they're not just academics. They're up there. They're both like professors of.
Hey, and his thing is that he could argue anyone, regardless if they're fucking wrong or not. He could argue them into a fucking corner. But that's the thing. That's what I'm not interested in. He is, and he's an onto it guy. But I'm the same as that. Yeah, his thing's great. But it's
interesting you saying before, like, it's interesting. You said something like about hearing people kind of interpret what you're doing to you. But I think that comes back to what I was saying of, like, did you sit down and write down what this was going to be, which I knew the answer wouldn't be that.
Yeah.
It's a lot of what you're doing is just kind of, as I say, baked in based on your kind of knowledge and your cultural references and so on. This isn't really a question. I just wanted to come back to you saying that. You I felt like you sold yourself short a bit, like, no, there's not that amount of kind of depth and thought in it, but there is. It's just kind of all up there rather than there being a manifesto or a PDF of it, right?
For sure, sure. Well, I think that's fair. I think, Lewis, I think that's fair, definitely. I mean, I certainly, when I started doing it, the reasoning was that, look, I've got, I do this, I sing, I can sing. Well, how can I put this across? And so I basically created an outlet for it by doing this character and then bringing cats in. And then what it was is I also wanted to give a platform to people. In all the early shows, a lot of people, I had people come and jump on with me, from Joe Malik there's loads of people that come and performed with me. And that's kind of something that we still carried on doing now. And, I was lucky to, when even in the early days, I was lucky to do a wee tour with Jocelyn Brown. And, for me, if you told me that, again, like 2 years before it happened, wow, I would have been like, you're talking shit.
Yeah.
And then I put a wee super group together with Jocelyn Brown and Roy Ayers. And we did a tour.
Wow.
Yeah.
With you as Miguel?
Me as Miguel, Miguel. And Roy, but what it was a little, it was like for, I wouldn't even mention what it is. It's like a perspiration brand, shall we say, or a thing, a little bit of a spush brand. And I got the chance to put this a wee super group together and stuff like that. And that literally that was 2 years into doing the Cuban Brothers. And I was like that. I was like that sort of thing with syndrome, like what they call it, not pretender syndrome.
Oh, imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome.
But Miguel was literally the best imposter ever, so that's good.
But I was pinching myself going, hold on.
Yeah.
These are two of my favourite artists of all time, and I'm sharing the stage with them. And literally I was 21 going like that, like, what the
But people love I guess that's you just made me realise like humour's the great kind of leveller, isn't it? It's a fun this is a fun thing to do. That it's kind of a bit different to what we've done in the past, and I get it. How did it gain traction? Because as we all know, there are people doing amazing things everywhere in bedrooms and stages, and crowds of 5. Where do you think that you started? What was the gig or whatever that really kicked it off for you guys?
Well, it was basically the same place that I started.
Yeah.
It was the same place that went quite meteoric, and it's a little place called the Jazz Cellar Number 1. It's a jazz bar on Chambers Street in Edinburgh, in South Side in Edinburgh, and just opposite is the Edinburgh Museum, which is like an extraordinary museum, and then behind the museum is the Edinburgh University,
right,
which is like specialises in medicine and the arts and all sorts. But it's a really smart part of town.
And Edinburgh pops anyway for fringe events and music
sure.
and yeah.
And what we had in that place, I was in there and I'd come back. I'd come back. I'd been back from Spain for a wee while, and I was basically running that bar with an Aussie chick. And then on Tuesdays I'd DJ, and I started doing the character, and there's this sort of it went from literally within a fortnight. Edinburgh's a small scene, and because I was running clubs and promoting clubs as well. People say, "Oh, we're going to go and see Mike doing this thing." It's a good laugh, and so we literally 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It went from taking 400 quid on a Tuesday to taking $4,000 to then So it was exponentially, and it was so. And so after 3 weeks, 4 weeks, literally, it was packed.
Can I just stop you there for a second? I've worked in hospo daytime roles. I've worked managing venues, doing some booking. For you to make a Tuesday work anywhere in the world, a Tuesday is saying something. That is always the day or the night that you kind of just keep open to pay for the fridges to electricity, Yeah, it's great. Yeah. Sorry, were you with that?
It was the reason I think it worked, or the reason that it caught on, and maybe it's still the reason that I've been able to have a career that's, lasted 22 years, 23 years internationally. I don't know, but I think it's the fact that it was, it was different. And the way I'd watched the dance music go up its own arse in the mid-90s, and it was just fucking chin stroking and dudes standing against walls or watching a guy at a DJ console just like that. Oh, he's really fucking good at beat matching this guy. Check this. You know what I mean? It's like, fucking hell, man. I come from that thing from the late 80s as a kid, admittedly, but it was jump up and party.
Go out and have some fun. Go out and have some fun. Get loose.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Get loose. And so I wanted to bring that back. And so that was a big aspect of making people, relax. And the way that, taking it was a bit left field because I wanted to take the piss. But again, do it in a warm way. It was never, the Cubans have never been mean spirited.
No,
so I might say something that could be a little bit cutting, but it's not meant like to hurt somebody. It's meant like
but that's not just worrying or thinking about Cuban culture, because you've said it a few times now. You've spoken to the fact that for a character to work, the crowd's got to like them. You're not going to get anywhere if it's like, who's this arsehole taking the mickey, So it always has to be a warm character, and I felt like that not just late 90s, but you've spoken to something else like with hip hop that often, I think, much longer term can be a kind of thing that is quite difficult, like the kind of real staunch hip-hop head, especially, a lot of the guys around in New Zealand at the time. So, to kind of to play with it and be a bit silly, I'd imagine it actually probably put a few people off guard initially. Don't take things so seriously, I guess is what I'm saying.
That's it, man. That's it.
Yeah,
exactly. And that was it. That was the it's about playing with the, just having a laugh, and so the music was important as well because I was doing a mixture. I was doing a mixture of some stuff I was just spitting over the breaks, And then obviously I made my own records as well, which were basically we just sampled the breaks.
Yeah.
And the same things. And it was just, it was a mishmash, but I'm a singer as well. So it was like, I wasn't just spitting, I was singing, trying to get a bit of a vibe up with whatever.
The way I see it unfolding, if people haven't seen you before, the first thing is like clicking that you're, you're not who you say you are. I wanted to ask you in a sec if some people have taken a long time to click. But anyway, but then just you kind of slowly unraveling the skills and the kind of, the different aspects to the show. Suddenly, fuck, he can rap really well. Holy shit, they can both breakdance really well. This, that, and the other. I don't know, I kind of always loved that when I've seen you guys. That's how it always felt. It's like, it's that classic thing of like, almost like a street performer, I guess. It's like, what's going to happen here? What's going to happen here? Bang, 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 And then you're on the really tall unicycle and juggling the chainsaws at the end, which is the way it should be, right? You can't come on doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. No, you're very astute. Exactly. That's exactly the vibe. I mean, I wish I'd learned the unicycle.
Yeah. Doesn't suit, man. It's not a hip hop thing. That's yeah.
I've missed the fuck.
That's a like white outdoor trance party guy thing to learn. So it's not really your lane.
No, it's not my lane, but look, it's all valid.
Another thing,
sure.
I was going to say another thing. Like I'd imagine, not that I've done this, but say you're having an affair and doing something else. This is not you, by the way. And so you're telling all these different stories, and then often you come undone because you forget all the different stories you've told people. Like, do you keep track of what Miguel kind of talks about and what he says, where he says he's been up to on stage? Like, I think at one stage he was a champion skier. Do you remember all the backstory as you go? Yeah, great.
Yeah. No, of course, no, absolutely. I remember everything. No, for sure. I mean, basically, that's Miguel is it's the class. I hate to talk about myself in third person. That can sound extraordinarily wanky, but it's the whole thing is that he's a blowhard.
Yeah.
So as far as he's concerned, right, he's invented everything, or at least he was there at its inception.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that it's like of course he's not burning for you. I was there and I was having a great time. The MC Coke La Rock. Well, we were there. It's a great thing, and of course he's there with us. Of course, DJ Herc was there, and I just happened to come down.
So he was there at the birth of hip hop. He was he helped wheel the speakers out to the park, that sort of thing.
You know what I mean? It's that whole carry on. But then with this time, when I decided that I was going to be a female volleyball coach, and I ended up in Lower Hutt at this marvelous school, St. Hilda's. So I was working there. It lasted about 2 weeks, and I was unceremoniously sacked. No charges were brought, but I had a great time. And it was then that, it's this kind of shit, and it's like, it's nonsense, isn't it? But it's that kind of thing. And the great thing was, it was me, Jonah Lomu, God rest his soul, and we were having a great time together. And he was playing, I was playing for Fueling Agricultural First 15.
Yeah.
And I was so obviously all these stories that come through, yes, it's ridiculous, but because, as you said so astutely, I do remember everything, and there is a certain amount of preparation, and then, I'm never going to go in. But that's the thing, I never go in super prepared, but I always know where I'm going to go and how I'm going to have fun with the story.
Your kind of buffer there is that he's actually a bullshit artist too. So he can spin things all different ways. Yeah, so that's kind of a bit of a blessing in a way.
That's it. It's exactly that sort of carry on. But then it's the amount of stuff that's the extraordinary things that have happened that are true. It kind of negates all the nonsense.
Oh, go on! Tell us some anecdotes. What are those, man? I'd imagine it's been a pretty amazing ride.
There's so many. But I was just thinking earlier, as you said about as you were talking, you were saying about like how sort of tough hip hop or real MCs or artists being like I've had a few cats like at the side of the stage like that. And then
Snoop Doggy Dogg from Cuban, who
don't know Snoop Dogg. I've hung out with.
No, I was being a little bit facetious. I was meaning like the white, non-American guy. I mean, Cuban and Wellington, a bit obscure, but
sure. Sorry, yes, I'm with you. Yeah, with you. Yeah, but like carry on. But what it says that a great thing was that we did a show in just south of Melbourne, and it's they do a festival where there's one on Tassie. It ran, I think it might still be running, but it was certainly run for over a decade. It'll come to me. We did the Good Vibes Fest, right? So initially when we were coming, we did Good Vibes with James Brown. So we got to tour with James for 5 dates.
Wow!
And we were on directly before James, and. Or Mr. Brown, sorry. And, of course, Danny Ray, his original MC, who sadly just passed as well. God rest both their soul. Danny Ray was there, and he used to put us on. So, because I got a chance to bring a 15-piece band over. James had 18, right? But we had a chance to bring this full band across, which is just off the scale. And James, at the Sydney show, was in the wings, dancing.
Wow!
And everyone says, and so he's doing his thing, and he's just like shouting, And so when I come off stage, and this is what the drummer ended up coming back with us. I'll remember his name in a minute as well. I'm a wee bit melted with the rememberations. He's back in the hotel, and he says, "Yo, Mr. Brown, he never comes out before the show." I won't use the vernacular he used, but if you can think, he's a Southern gentleman from Georgia. He called us us gentlemen, the N-word. I'm not that comfortable using that, but he's of course doing your brothers, like this is the nicest man. Mr. Brown's he's dancing.
Wow.
He's there. I ain't never seen that before. So as I came off, he's there. He's already in a sweat, and he's like that. Hey, the drawers. You get these drawers. And it's going on. Anyway, the next day, so I'm like that. You could have shot me. You could have killed me there. I'm having off. I get invited into into his trailer.
Yeah, right.
Where he's got a Latonia, his own. Latonia was her name. His own coiffure, right? And to get my hair done. Well, I was wearing a syrup at the time, wearing a wig. And so I'm like that. So I had to explain to him. I said, Mr. Brown, it's a wig. So he's pissing himself at that, for a start, because I proceeded to get my wig straightened by her, the same as he had it, right? And he's talking to me, and I've never been, I've met a lot of my heroes, and so I've never had my head turned that as much as I did that day.
I know what you mean. Like, you don't generally get starstruck. I'm sort of the same. Yeah.
But he sat next to me, and I'm getting my hair tongs, and he's chatting away to me like,
Oh, are you wearing the wig? Well, this is important. Are you wearing the wig while it's happening?
I'm wearing a wig, and she's straightening it for me. I'm wearing a wig, and he's talking away to me like, the Japanese called the Japanese gentleman, the Japanese brother, dancing, dancing, and then fun. And and then he's talking to me about singing and stuff like that. I'm just like that. Oh my god! So that kind of shit's amazing.
Are you aware that you just told a magic mushroom story involving no magic mushrooms?
Yeah, fairly aware.
So I was getting my hair straightened by James Brown's personal hairstylist, and he was talking to me, and he doesn't normally talk to people. Yeah.
But that wasn't the story I was going to tell you. The story, the main was that goes back to what you were saying. We did a show, and Public Enemy we were on just before Public Enemy, right?
Yeah.
No, in fact, the way the lineup worked, they were on before us, and I'm like that. This is deeply wrong. Yeah, like what the fuck? But it wasn't. It didn't work out like we were further up the bill.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah,
you get it, right? And so. There was a point we used to do this routine, and it is a Rick James routine. Give it to me, baby. Yeah. It's when I came home last night. Bing, 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 bing. You wouldn't make love to me. So we did that routine. I sing it, and the boys do a locking routine. But just during one of the things, I come to. Now I've been hanging out with Flavor Flav the 2 gigs before, and so we weren't very popular because we'd made him late because he was drinking with us, and it was everyone on the PE tour. It was a dry tour, yeah? And I think, no one was drinking apart from Flav. Right.
And it was probably a dry tour to stop Flav drinking. Now I think about it, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, that's
anyway. Do continue. Yeah.
So I come off stage to change my kicks, yeah, because we're going to go into a b-boy section next, right? So the guys are still dancing, and I come off, and Chuck is in the wings. And he's just like that, and he's pissing himself laughing. And I'm just like that, you know, and he's just like that up onto my shoulders and putting my things on. He's just like, yo.
Wow.
He says, and I'm like that, what? And I'm delighted. And he just says, "Y'all brothers, man, you're some entertaining motherfuckers." And he's just like, says, "You're always going to work." And I said, "How's that?" And he says, "Because it's entertainment." And he says, "You know what?" Yeah. And he says, "You're keeping the music alive."
Yeah.
You know, I think maybe Rick had maybe just passed, I don't know, maybe a year before or whatever. But you know, and that to me, you can imagine me walking back on stage like 20 men. You're just like that.
Yeah.
Bro, you want to fuck with me? You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's right. I mean, that's it. Hey, when you're doing shows like you do and festivals like you do, I mean, there's two straight up icons there. I get it. That's another level of people giving you affirmations.
Totally. And that was it. And then afterwards, he's like, you know, he's got his, you know, so I'm hanging out with Chuck then. We're pals, and he's like that. And then, of course, the amount of shows we've done with De La Soul, these are all my heroes.
Oh, I just realised what we've both cleverly done, but we've forgotten about. I think you're also addressing the fact I was talking about the kind of staunch hip-hop attitude, and you kind of disarmed Chuck D side of stage. Am I right?
Yeah, exactly. For sure. Exactly, yeah. That was the point.
Yeah.
If you think about the staunch hip-hop guy, you know, traditionally, you think Chuck D as being the, you know what I mean?
What are these clowns doing with our music kind of thing? Yeah.
Awesome. Exactly. But that was the thing that was the thing that, as you said, like it stood out to me as being like, yes, to have that affirmation is brilliant, because I'd still, although we were successful and have been successful, you know, I still second guess, you know, you're still going like that. Okay, I'm doing a parody, but the music's tight and the lyrics. So what? I was never doing comedy songs.
You're doing parody, but you're so immersed in all of these cultures, you're also getting told, hey man, like, yeah, you're keeping the music alive, like you said. I don't even know why you're kind of trying to justify that. It's pretty clear, but you know. But I can see how it would be a kind of neurosis of, like you say, being a comedy entertainer amongst everything else, especially when a lot of musical comedy can be so pish. You know, it's kind of a known thing. Yeah.
And that was it. We never wanted to do, you know, I wanted to be a band that was funny rather than an act, that, you know, a comedy act that did music. Do you understand? Yeah. So I always wanted to be, you know, we were an outfit first, an act that was funny, but the music, the songs and everything, they're not particularly, there's a comical edge to them, but they're not comedy songs. They haven't got any songs which are that type of sort of shit.
Got to give the other guys their flowers because they've been with you for a long time. How did you meet? What Archerio? Is that actually his real name?
Yes. Yeah. Archie's his real name. Yes.
Archie, and then Kingo-san, who, and this is where I don't know the line between parody and reality. He's not really a former Prodigy dancer, is he?
No, Archie was, yeah.
Oh, he was?
Archie was, yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, Archie was. He was one of the floor freaks. So. Oh,
I always thought there was just, because I do know my Prodigy history. I thought it was always just Leroy and Keith turned from a dancer. Man, what happened with Keith? That was out of the blue. Anyway, go there.
Yeah, very sad, very sad.
But yeah, so to keep any group of people together, especially, you know, with sporadic work of creative sort of stuff, how where did you meet them, and how have you guys stuck together so long?
For sure. Yeah. Well, Archie was a dancer with the Prodigy. He was a member of the Floor Freaks, which was Tough Tim Twist, Evo, and him. So they were like on the tour, the Fat of the Lat tour. They were the dancers, the b-boys, and they brought that sort of thing. But Archie and that had been, again, he was a first generation UK b-boy, and I met him in a club one night called in Edinburgh called the Honeycomb. And the mad thing was, I opened the Honeycomb with its owner. We dug it out, as in not us personally, but we created that club in 1997.
Yeah.
And so in the same place, about a year later, at a hip hop night called Scene, there was a circle, a b-boy circle. It's a brilliant night called Scene, and it was. I walked in and I was wearing Bara Aotearoa, which is my mate's foo.
I remember Bara clothing. Yeah, I do remember that.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm still rocking that, and I've got my hair's very curly. I've got a big blonde afro teased back. And I walked in and I see this guy battling 3 other guys, and I watched this take place, and I'm like that. Obviously, I'm itching. I'm a b-boy, and so I'm just like that. I'm getting more and more hyped up. So I went into the circle and went, full mania against Archie, and so it's basically battling 4 guys separately. But he wiped the floor with all of us, and I was just like, I was kind of in awe of this wee guy who was very unassuming. But like just such an extraordinary dancer, style wise, and power. And so I got a grip of him out of the thing and just said, "Look, can I buy you a drink? I do this little show down at the Cellar Bar number 1, and I'd love you to come down and A, have a look, and B, see if you want to get involved." And that was how we met, and that was simple as that. And he did come down, and he did let me draw a little pencil-thin moustache on him, and he did let me give him one of my grandfather's cruising shirts. And when I say
that's not a euphemism, folks. What was it?
When I say cruising shirt, I don't mean cruising shirts like that. There's no fucking harm in that anyway. But I'm just meaning something a little bit different. I just gave a little bit of a. It was one of my, one of those tropical shirts of truth and justice, shall we say? And we got down, and it was kind of a very supernatural thing, and that was how we became friends. And there was one thing that we realised: we both teach together. So that wasn't our very first meeting. We both teached in the Craig Miller and basically the council estates. There was quite a lot of violence and stuff. And
right, you guys were teaching dance to kids.
We were, and so that was one of the things I did. We used to go into the council estates, and we teach kids b-boying, and we both did something about a year where we came across each other, and we were both teaching in the same place. So it was like the second meeting after that. So we had that frisson because we knew that we were both coming from a place, of hip hop culture, but also coming from a place of the actual tenets of hip hop culture, reach one, teach one, that kind of, and so we knew that was a vibe, and so, man, and so that was, and with Kenny was an English lit student at the Edinburgh University.
This is Kengo,
yeah.
That's who Kenny the Bastard is. Thank you. Okay, keep going.
So he was there, and he was going to a breakdance class that we were also involved with, that I was involved with.
Right.
At the university, and but he already had skills, and so I went in and I was trying to teach him some stuff, and I was like, going, "Oh, bro, you're pretty shit hot as it is, man."
Yeah.
So we became pals, and he was a very, he's an academic. Kenny is a proper academic, so he had his masters at 20. His master's in English lit, and I'm like that. Wow! So this is the guy, but he's a brilliant dancer, and I got him to come and get involved as well. Again, I said, "Look, I'm doing this thing," and when Archie wasn't available, I'd bring Kenny and have him perform with me. And I was doing Barry Peters then as well, so I'm doing as a different character, Halifax Hospital Radio, which still used elements of kind of 80s disco and popping and locking, rather than the power. You could see that, all the characters I did have always been sort of music driven, and have always had a physicality, and that was the thing. So that was how. So that was how we came together like that, and then it took a couple of years before we worked, as in me, Archie, and Kenneth.
Yeah. And I'm assuming that those guys, like, as successful as it is, that they'd have other work or jobs as well, right? Or it's just the Cuban Brothers sustain itself enough on its own?
Sustains itself, yeah.
That's freaking awesome, man. Yeah,
man.
Yeah,
we've been busy enough with that. I mean, I'm an actor as well, so I do films, and I've just done this TV.
Yeah, it's all on the list. I feel like it's been so interesting so far. Selling you a little bit short with the rest of the stuff I had to ask. But that's good. The thing I really love about these conversational style podcast eps is just that. Like, I like them just to go wherever they end up going. You know, much better than quite a kind of rigid interview. One last sort of thing specifically before that, another thing with you guys is, unless I'm horribly mistaken, that you're the only one who speaks, right? And I love the other guys there's almost like a classic kind of clown mime style of way they react to things. That's very much by design, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was never spoken of. It was just what happened. Like,
but he has really exaggerated. Like, it's like French clowning kind of style responses to things on top of the breaking, which works really well on a festival stage because you really kind of get a sense of what's going on up there.
It's true, and that was completely natural. That was completely natural. I never said, never gave him any, give him any sort of.
That's a sign of a unit that was meant to be, like you said, right? So with Miguel, last thing on Miguel that. In these how would you say, in these sensitive times we live in, he's kind of uncancelable, right? And there's some lines like I laughed. The guy I was standing next to at Splore when you said this particular line, I will still text it to him or say it to him every now and again. You were going on about Miguel was going on about some stressful time he'd had, and he said he was sweating like a poofter in a hot dog factory, which is objectively a really funny line. Come on. But yeah, he's
a blind puff in a hot dog factory.
A blind puff in a hot dog factory. Sorry. Okay. But to my wider point, right? Like you're kind of talking about people just needing to relax, loosen up a bit. He's harmless. It's a fun character. He's kind of in an uncancelable lane, right? Which I think is a good thing in this day and age.
Well, do you know what? It's It's funny.
We're talking about the lawsuits for the last part of the podcast. Yeah.
Woohoo! Watch this, bro.
yeah.
No, it's look. It seems that no one's uncancelable. I mean, it's like it's that kind of carry on. I think that that we haven't had.
I'm not serious. I'm not serious. But anyway, yeah.
For sure, no, for sure.
Yeah.
I have had to look. I have had to look at some of the stuff I chat about, and I have had to look at. With the whole movement that's happened with BLM and the whole carry on. Not that we fall into that category of thing, but I had to look at the whole thing with the Cubans and the fact that Cuba claims us. We performed there many times in Pinar del Rio and Havana, all over, right? But at the same time, we haven't. It hasn't come from anybody. In particular, but a couple of cats have maybe questioned the fact of cultural appropriation, which is kind of fair. You've got to take it on the chin, but it's a character, and that. But
how would this is a big conversation, but I'll just quickly say, how would anything end up going anywhere if there wasn't cultural appropriation? Like, how did I start DJing? How did I start writing? How did I start doing this? I got it all from things I liked and did my own version of them, right? Anyway.
Everything's cultural appropriation.
Life's a sample, man. Everything's a sample, Yeah.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
But as an entertainer and as a I don't know, without using the right terminology, as a man of a certain type of repute, right, in the industry, right, it would be, idiotic of me not to think about.
For sure. No, absolutely. Yeah.
And not to take it completely seriously, because the whole thing is, as an entertainer and as a comic, whatever you want to call it, then you only want to spread love and have a laugh. That's what the whole thing's about. And if I ever thought that, that was, and thank God we haven't had that yet. There has been people question the cultural appropriation thing, and so that's and I guess they're right to the fact that I'm a non-Cuban, playing this character, and it is a character, and that's that kind of thing. And so
that's a very particular kind of cultural appropriation. That's a bit more worthy of thinking about than my idea of kind of borrowing from different music, creative cultures, right? You're going to Cuba and pretending to be a Cuban guy. There's a lot to think about before you can.
There is.
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
There is.
Yeah.
There
Totally.
Is.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of thing. But you got to look at it. It's a character. That's what it is. And so, there's so many characters that people were doing. Maybe less than 4 or 5 years ago, which you wouldn't get away with now. And so, we've sort of
but yours is again, all of this. Like yours isn't dated like that. It's not ill-intended. It's not malicious.
No. Yeah.
But
sure.
Again, it's a big conversation. I'm sort of potentially opening up near the end. But I just worry that what I see is that there's some people in this modern era of stop that, don't say that, cancel that are it's almost like a puritanical kind of like religious approach to things. It's not actually thinking about, is this actually offensive or harmful? And what is your motivation for kind of shutting that down?
For sure.
It's interesting times. I mean, the whole Chappelle thing's like, I watched that special. It's not his best special by a long shot, but I get what he's doing. But then I totally get the other side as well. And he's kind of like rebel roused as intended. But it's a really interesting thing to watch play out because it kind of speaks to a lot of what I don't know if you followed all of that. You probably have. Yeah.
I did. No, I did.
Yeah.
I did. I mean, I would say that I just didn't find the special funny.
No, that was the weird. That's it comes down to the entertainment. I was like, before all of that unraveled, or I thought about it unraveling, I was sitting there going, oh man, this is the first time a Chappelle special hasn't like been, you sit down and you go, yes, I'm going to watch this tonight. And it was just kind of like, I don't know whether that was intentional either. Hey, look, I was going to ask about albums and stuff and so on, but I think this quite sort of serious, touch at the end. This feels like a good place to leave you. We're at an hour 20. But it's been a pleasure to
an hour and 20. Jesus Christ! It only feels like about 50 minutes, brother.
Oh, that's great. That's a good sign. I think, kindred spirits, maybe. Look, when are you? Just lastly, I mean, travel. It's all on up in the air, but you haven't done Splore for a while. If you can, are you going to come back and do shows in New Zealand at some stage?
100%, 100%. Yeah, we'll be back in. I think there's a couple of shows in Oz, maybe in February. If all goes to plan. I mean, obviously you can't. But I'll be back in. I know that you've interviewed Senior John Mincy on the podcast.
Now that was interesting. It turned out he was an ex-Polynesian Panther, and he had this huge kind of I'd never.
When you imagine when he told me that when we first met, and my eyebrow touched the back of my neck, I'm like that. It's fascinating.
Look, some people listen to podcasts, some people don't. I get it. But if you do, even occasionally, I'd recommend that episode out of the ones I've done because you know him, but B, it was just a really interesting backstory, well told by him. So
no, he's a fascinating dude, and that was one of the and a great friend. We worked together for a long time, and man, I would be back at Splore. If there was any possibility, I'd be there in a quick.
Great.
Look, I was going to try and bring my family back to New Zealand.
To get the fuck out of Dodge.
Because it was just and looking at.
But look what's happened now, Mike. I'm trapped inside.
Now,
and you're bloody breakdancing all over the bloody continent. Okay, you should see what's under this hat. You should see what's under this hat. All right. Hey, look, it's been a pleasure. For the record, I wanted to talk about all your screen stuff. I've got it all here. I did do my research, but it's a sign of a good conversation, right? Maybe I'll ask you the rest.
Yes, brother, it's an absolute pleasure, Lewis. Okay. It's the pleasure's been mine, and it's nice to, I think it's nice to speak to somebody who has that kind of intuition, and lovely stuff.
Great. All right. Peace, man.
See you soon. Kia ora.